They think pain makes you quiet. But pain made me sharp. By the time Mark told me I owed him dinner, I'd worked 80 hours that week. My eyes were dry, my stomach was eating itself, and my keycard had locked me out twice because the system assumed no one sane would clock in that long. But I wasn't clocking in for sanity. I was clocking in to survive. He leaned against the doorway of my cube like he owned it, owned me. "Dinner after work," he said. "It's important. For your career." I turned slowly, keeping my voice even. "I have plans." Mark smiled with his teeth, but his eyes went flat. "Then I withdraw my support for your green card." That's the thing about power. It stops being subtle the second you say no. For a second, I just sat there, heat crawling up my spine like a warning. Every immigrant instinct screamed, "Don't escalate, don't fight, say yes, smile, play the game." But I wasn't playing anymore. I was done playing. So I said nothing. Just packed my bag, walked to the elevator like I wasn't burning inside, and pressed the button. That's when a voice behind me whispered, low and fast, "He did this to us too. Check your email tonight." I didn't turn around. I didn't nod. But I heard it. And I remembered it. Because when someone says us, they're either lying or handing you a weapon. I prayed it was the latter. That night, I showered in the dark. My apartment was cold, bare. My lease month to month, like everything else in my life. Nothing here was mine, except the debt I carried and the fear that followed me like a shadow. I dried off, pulled on a hoodie, and opened my laptop. One new email. No subject, no sender. Inside was a single line. "He grooms, he threatens, he keeps you quiet with immigration law. Here's how you make noise." Below it, a link. My gut twisted, but I clicked. It led to a folder named The Truth. Inside, chat logs, screenshots, meeting invites labeled Mentorship Dinner at 10:30 p.m., emails where Mark dangled H-1B renewals like a leash. One message read, "Without me, you're nothing here." There were work reports too, time cards, hours logged at 3 a.m., project notes marked Urgent Culture Sync. I recognized one of the names, and another. One woman had lasted 8 months, another 6. And then they vanished. No goodbyes, no LinkedIn updates, just gone. I scrolled, bile in my throat. This wasn't about me, it was about all of us. I clicked to the last file, a note. "If you want out, you'll need a backup. Plan it carefully. Mark destroys people when they push back." Fear pulsed through me, but beneath it was something else. Older, harder. I wasn't afraid of being destroyed. I was afraid of disappearing quietly. The next morning, I watched Mark in the kitchen making a show of pouring someone coffee, laughing too loud. He looked untouchable. Clean suit, company golden boy. The man who built culture, who mentored internationals, who worked hard to support visa talent. It made me sick, and it made me focus. Because you can't burn down a system by screaming at it. You have to document it. You have to walk around like nothing's wrong. And you have to cut your leash one link at a time without ever letting them hear it snap. So I smiled when he looked at me and started planning his downfall. There's a difference between evidence and proof. Evidence makes you feel something. Proof makes them afraid. I spent the next week collecting both. The folder I'd been sent wasn't just damning, it was detailed. But raw screenshots won't save you in a system designed to protect predators like Mark. You need timestamps, logs, traces that can't be erased. And most of all, you need the restraint to wait while you build a wall high enough to bury someone. So I got to work. I wasn't the only one anymore. That night after the link, 2 more anonymous messages arrived. He forced me to go to Miami with him for a conference. It was just him, and a hotel room. He pulled my visa letter the day I asked to transfer teams, said I was being ungrateful. I didn't reply. I just logged them. Their silence had already cost too much. But now it served a purpose. Protection. Ghosts don't get targeted. I'd be their voice. I'd be the one stupid enough or angry enough to risk it all. And Mark? He had no idea. He walked past my desk twice that week with his smug little nod, like a priest blessing the masses. Meanwhile, I was tracking every optional event he arranged, every casual dinner he handpicked visa holders to attend. I wasn't compiling a case. I was constructing a coffin. I started digging through the back end of our systems, not to hack, just to read what he had left exposed. That's the thing about abusers. They're sloppy because they never expect consequences. There it was, buried in a shared drive marked Mentor Materials, a spreadsheet of employees on visas with columns labeled Dependents, Expiry Date, and Loyalty Rating. Loyalty. Rating. He'd been scoring us like racehorses. There were comments, too. Quiet, keeps head down, second-year OPT. High potential but mouthy. Watch for attitude shift. Divorced, no kids, likely to comply. I saved a copy. Printed one, too. No cloud storage, no trace. He wouldn't see me coming. By Wednesday, I had everything I needed to make it ugly. But I wasn't going for ugly. I was going for irreversible. So I started thinking longer, bigger. What if I didn't just get him fired? What if I could make it so that he never worked near visa holders again? For that, I'd need a failsafe. Something that couldn't be swept under HR misunderstandings. Something no board would want leaked. I had just the thing. Inside a forgotten folder in our old documentation archive, an access link I still had from a project 2 years ago, I found a video file, a Zoom recording, and all hands from the pandemic years, a meeting Mark had hosted on team culture for remote employees. I remembered it vaguely, but I hadn't remembered this. At 43 minutes in, someone asked a question about work-life balance. Mark laughed. Come on, people. If you're here on a visa, you know balance isn't the priority. You work. You prove you belong. That's the deal. He said it with a smirk. No shame. No ambiguity. I clipped it. Saved it to a USB. Wrote the timestamp on a Post-it in Sharpie and stuck it on the wall above my desk. Because sometimes revenge is simple. You just give the truth a microphone. Later that night, I sat in my dark kitchen with a mug of burnt coffee and stared at my own face in the microwave door. I looked exhausted, hollow, but not helpless. This wasn't about vengeance anymore. This was reclamation. Mark didn't just abuse power. He built a system out of it, made it look normal, dressed it up in language like mentorship and integration and career acceleration. And the worst part? Everyone let him. Even the ones who whispered warnings. Even the ones who said, be careful. They knew, and they watched. But I wasn't watching anymore. I was loading the gun, and I wasn't going to miss. I never thought freedom would come from a lawyer, but it did. A short woman with sharper glasses than Tone, who didn't blink when I dropped the name Mark Halverson. She glanced over the files I brought, never asking why I had them. I've seen worse, she said flatly, but this is systematic. He's not harassing you. He's running a racket. She tapped a paragraph on her screen. Your H-1B, yes? I nodded. And your current petition is with that company only? I nodded again. She leaned back. Then it's time to change that. I waited. Silence. The legal kind that makes you brace for bad news. Instead, she said, you don't need to rely on them. You can take on a second employer legally. As long as it's part-time and in your field, you can file a concurrent petition. Then you have a foot in 2 doors. You can leave whenever you want. And he loses his leash. I blinked. That wasn't how they'd explained it at onboarding. That wasn't what HR made it sound like. They always said, one company owns your visa. Turns out they were lying, or they just liked it that way. I walked out of her office with a new folder, this one labeled Concurrent Sponsorship, Strategy and Steps. I didn't smile. I was too busy calculating. If I found the right second job, I could flip the script. Mark's threats only worked because he thought I was caged. But now the bars were rotting. I just needed one more key. I opened my old portfolio, 3 publications, 5 research reports, 1 full-stack build for a protein structure modeling tool I'd built during grad school, back before life became paperwork and silence. It was still solid. All I needed was someone to believe in it. Enter Dr. Elise Lane. She ran a private research lab uptown. Nothing huge, just a data analysis group contracted by 2 medical schools. I'd met her at a conference last year. She remembered me. More importantly, she remembered my code. "You did the neural cleanup for the drug interaction model, right?" she asked on the call. "Yeah," I said. "You want part-time work?" I did. She sent the offer letter that night. 10 hours a week. Flexible. Remote. Pay wasn't flashy, but that didn't matter. What mattered was the petition. My lawyer filed it the next morning. The moment it was received, I had legal standing to split my sponsorship. 1 foot still in Mark's building, but the other already walking away. I slept for 10 hours straight. First time in months. When I woke up, I didn't check Slack. I didn't check Jira. I just opened the code base Dr. Lane had sent me and started working. It felt clean. No manipulation, no doublespeak, just raw logic and honest work. No mandatory team drinks, no after-hours culture, just tasks, deadlines, results. It reminded me why I came here in the first place, not to survive, to build. That afternoon, HR made a mistake. They were reviewing status updates, reorganizing assignments. I was CC'd on something I shouldn't have seen. An internal note labeled, Alina Petran, hold until EOQ, then transfer to bench. I froze. End of quarter. Bench meant unpaid leave. No tasks. Visa support paused. Pending business need. I'd seen them do it to 2 other women. First came the praise, then the silence, then the sudden email. We regret to inform you your position is being descoped. It wasn't firing. It was slow deletion. And it was planned for me. I stared at the screen. Then I forwarded it to my personal email, printed it, and added it to my folder. Insurance. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Let them think I hadn't noticed. Let them prep their knife. I was already sharpening mine. Mark messaged me that evening. Heard you're moonlighting now. Interesting choice. No greeting, no smiley. Just a test. I waited an hour before responding. You know how it is. Gotta stay competitive. He replied with a thumbs-up emoji. But it wasn't approval. It was warning. He knew he was losing grip. Knew that the leverage he'd held for years, the leash he'd tightened with every denied PTO, every 10 p.m. dinner invite, was slipping. And for the first time, I felt it too. He was afraid. He just didn't know how much he should be. Yet. Mark once told me, no one remembers the ones who leave quietly. He meant it as advice. A warning wrapped in mentorship. A reminder that to matter, you had to stay useful. You had to stay his. But I remembered. I remembered every woman who suddenly stopped showing up. Every desk that went cold. Every Slack profile that switched to inactive without goodbye. And I knew why they left. They didn't disappear. They were erased. But what Mark didn't know, what most predators forget, is that erasing a person doesn't delete the data they touched. Footprints remain, emails, commits, calendar invites. And footprints? They can be followed. I didn't dig alone. Kevin joined me without being asked. He wasn't a visa holder, but he'd seen enough to know what Mark did wasn't just sketchy, it was targeted, predictable, strategic. I kept backups, he said casually one afternoon, of team schedules, mostly because Mark used to blame me for projects running over. I got tired of guessing. He handed me a flash drive. Inside, over 6 months of time-stamped task logs, overtime hours, meetings outside policy hours labeled casual team syncs. It was beautiful. I won't say anything, he added. But if you're building something, I want in. I nodded once. It wasn't about trust. It was about common goals. We weren't whistleblowing. We were preparing for war. We started small. Slack records, meeting invites that clearly violated labor policies, late-night project launches that suddenly disappeared from public logs. I printed everything, stored it in a physical binder, alphabetized by type, dinners, delays, dependencies, disappeared. Mark kept operating like nothing was happening. Good. Let him. The more he talked, the more he assumed I was under his thumb, the more proof I collected. Then came the archive. One of our old internal tools, left over from a previous product rollout, had admin logs going back 5 years. Most people didn't even know it still existed. But I remembered the repo link, and inside it, an attendance list from a visa night Mark hosted in 2019. Supposedly to empower and support our international hires. The invite list was damning, all junior, all female, all H-1B or OPT. The speaker list? Just Mark. But what hit me wasn't the attendees. It was the name at the bottom of the agenda, Linda H. She'd onboarded me when I joined, smiled during orientation, told me, if you ever feel uncomfortable, speak up. Even if no one listens, document everything. 2 months later, she was gone. No transfer, no exit memo, just gone. Everyone said she moved back home. No one had spoken her name since. I searched her ID in the system. It was archived, but not deleted. I pulled her last 2 weeks of calendar events. Guess what I found? 2 late-night strategy syncs with Mark. 1 note attached to a meeting invite. Please prep the green card package. Let's review over dinner. My blood went cold. This had been going on for years, and now, with Kevin's help, I had proof it wasn't just accidental. It was a method. Mark groomed. Mark selected. Mark rewarded loyalty with fake sponsorship promises, then ghosted anyone who resisted. He didn't just prey on fear, he engineered it. That night I called my lawyer. I have something. I walked her through the logs, the meetings, the disappearance pattern. She listened, took notes, asked sharp questions, then said, "You're close, but don't act yet. 1 wrong move and he'll spin it. He'll make it sound like a misunderstanding, a cultural difference. He might even claim you were the one manipulating him." I gritted my teeth. "So what do I do?" "Wait," she said. "Keep collecting. Keep clean. Let him think you're still on the leash." Then she added something colder. "Let him believe he's still winning." I started copying calendar invites on a burner laptop. Not screenshots, raw metadata. Who sent it? What time? What changed? Because cover-ups always start with edits, not deletions. And sure enough, 1 invite vanished the day after we submitted our Q3 reports, a dinner event for international talent review. Originally included me, Sana, Rahul, and 3 others, all visa holders. It disappeared from the master calendar but still existed in the email logs. I added it to the binder. Then I wrote a new tab, Edits. Because when this exploded, I wasn't just going to show what Mark did. I was going to show how the company let him. A week later, Kevin handed me a file. "From the printer logs," he said. "Don't ask how." Inside, a scanned document, a draft of a disciplinary action template. One line highlighted in red: "Employees' refusal to participate in team culture initiatives may reflect poorly during visa renewal discussions." I stared at it. "Do you think it's real?" I asked. Kevin nodded. "Someone tried to shred it. Printer jammed." I smiled for the first time in weeks, because now it wasn't just anecdotal. It was written. They put the threat in ink. Now it was just a matter of time. Mark made it sound like a favor. "Need you at the dinner next Thursday. Big partners. Visibility's good for your future." My jaw locked when I saw the invite. Not a one-on-one like usual. This was bigger. Board members, senior staff, foundation donors. A real event with name tags and canapes and the illusion of equality. I considered saying no, but then I remembered what my lawyer said. Let him think he's winning. So I clicked accept and started planning what I'd wear to his execution. The event was at a private rooftop in Midtown. Polished floors, curated lighting, the kind of background hum that screams prestige. I wore navy, understated, clean. I brought nothing but a small purse and the tiny black USB drive I kept looped through my keyring, just in case. Mark was already working the room when I arrived. He saw me, nodded like we shared some secret, like this was our game. It made my skin crawl. I walked straight past him and introduced myself to a board member I recognized from the company site, Adrienne Cho, VP of Compliance. I'd seen her quoted in a press release about diversity pipelines and ethical leadership. She was sharp-eyed, didn't smile much. Perfect. "Alina Petran," I said, extending a hand. "Data modeling team." "I've heard of you," she said. "Your analytics model helped secure the BioNet renewal." "Team effort," I replied. She didn't look convinced. "And what brings you to this dinner?" I let the question hang. Then I said, "Apparently my visa depends on it." Her brow twitched, just a little. Then someone pulled her away. Good. Seed planted. An hour in, Mark took the mic. He was in full performance mode, hands open, fake humility oozing out with every word. He thanked the guests, praised the family culture, and toasted the dedication of our global talent. Then he smirked. "Let's be honest," he said into the mic. "We all love 80-hour weeks, especially those of us on work visas, right?" A few people laughed. Others didn't. I felt my blood go still. And then, before I could think too hard, I stepped forward. "Mark," I said, loud enough to carry. "Can I ask a question?" He blinked, smiled. "Of course." Everyone turned. I held his gaze. My voice didn't shake. "I've been told before that refusing these dinners might affect my visa. Just to be clear, is that true?" The air snapped. Someone dropped a fork. Mark's smile faltered. That's not how I'd put it." "But is it how the system works?" I pressed. "Would my sponsorship be reviewed differently if I declined to come tonight?" Adrienne turned her head slowly toward him. Mark laughed, too loud. "Come on, Alina. You're misunderstanding the intent here." "Intent doesn't matter," I said, still calm. "Policy does." Silence. Real silence. The kind that means everyone heard what you said and is pretending they didn't until someone else reacts first. Then Adrienne spoke. "I think we should talk," she said. "Tomorrow, my office." Mark opened his mouth, then shut it. I didn't look at him again. I left early, not because I was rattled. I wasn't. I was done. Mark hadn't realized it yet, but that mic wasn't his tonight. It was mine, and he handed it to me, thinking I'd say thank you. The next morning, Adrienne's assistant called. 10 a.m. sharp, boardroom 5. She asked for documents. Bring whatever you think is relevant. I brought the binder. Not all of it, just the cleanest slices. The spreadsheet with visa status notes. The printed calendar invites to mentorship dinners. The Zoom transcript where Mark joked about working to prove we belong. When Adrienne arrived, she didn't sit, just paged through the materials. "You've been collecting?" she said. "I've been surviving. And now? Now I'm ready to win." She closed the binder. "Don't talk to anyone else about this. We'll initiate an internal review, quietly." "Of course," I said, because silence, I'd learned, could be its own weapon. Mark didn't message me for 2 days. When he finally did, it was one line. That wasn't a good look. I didn't reply. He knew. Not everything, but enough. Enough to sense the shift, that I wasn't afraid anymore, that I wasn't asking for freedom. I was taking it, and I was going to take more. It wasn't about going public. Not yet. Public was loud, messy. Public made people choose sides before they read facts, and I didn't want sides. I wanted documentation, signatures, dates, timestamps. Paper didn't lie. So I called Sana. She met me at a quiet cafe, hood up, jaw tight. "I thought about quitting," she said. "Don't," I replied. "We're too close." She looked at me. "You sure this won't backfire?" "No," I said. "But I'm sure if we don't do this, it will happen again. To someone quieter." That was enough. We filed the forms together. Wage theft, Department of Labor, coercion and retaliation, EEOC, visa-based discrimination, USCIS complaint branch. Rahul joined us a day later. He looked exhausted. "I've been sitting on this for months," he said. "I thought maybe I overreacted. Maybe I just misunderstood." "You didn't," I said. He brought the receipts, meeting recordings, forwarded messages, unprocessed time cards. He'd saved everything just in case. His version of a go bag. We didn't embellish. We didn't dramatize. We just wrote the truth down, line by line. It was boring. That made it powerful. 2 days later, the first ripple hit. A company-wide memo from legal. All employees are reminded not to delete, alter, or dispose of any communications or files related to project timelines, staffing, compensation, or visa processes. A formal record review is underway. They didn't say why, but people whispered. And inside IT, someone flagged something odd. 3 different deletion attempts from Mark's account. First, his visa mentorship Slack channel history. Second, his private calendar events tagged Leadership Sync Offsite. Third, a file folder titled Employee Culture Legacy. I didn't need to guess what he was trying to erase, but it was already backed up by me, by Kevin, by Rahul, by Sana. He'd been lazy for years because no one ever told him to be careful. Now his panic was catching up, and IT was watching. That same afternoon, I got a message from Adrienne. Simple. "Stay steady. This isn't one incident. It's a pattern." She was right, because while we waited, more came forward. One woman messaged me anonymously through Proton Mail. "I left after he pulled my sponsorship mid-process. Said I was too difficult to justify." Another said, "I got cut 2 weeks after I turned down an off-site dinner. He told me I was no longer team fit." None of them stayed long enough to fight. I didn't blame them. The system taught us that self-preservation meant silence. But silence was what kept people like Mark employed. Not anymore. The company put out a new policy memo a week later. Publicly, it was nothing. Just procedural. Internally, we knew it was panic. Visa-related discussions must now be routed through HR. No manager may reference visa status in performance or attendance conversations. Which was rich, Because the same HR team that issued it had sat in meetings with Mark where he casually referenced visa timelines to set expectations. The policy didn't protect us. It protected them from liability. But even fake protection was proof. Proof they knew the fire was real and spreading. Sana got called in by her manager. "You've been named in a review," he said. "Just letting you know." She kept her face blank. "I'm aware." He waited for her to flinch. She didn't, because it wasn't a threat anymore. It was admission. They weren't retaliating. They were confirming that we'd hit a nerve. That night, Rahul dropped off a USB drive. On it, a backup of the old intern onboarding slides. One section was titled International Expectations. He'd screenshotted it before they pulled it from circulation last year. Slide 3 read, "Working hard is more than policy. It's gratitude. Sponsorship is a privilege, not a guarantee. Show up, lean in, and prove your value." That slide had been presented as motivation. Now it was Exhibit B. Mark stopped looking at me in the halls, stopped saying my name in meetings, stopped inviting me to anything. It wasn't exclusion. It was fear. He didn't know what I had. He didn't know what I'd shared. He didn't even know who else was with me. And the uncertainty? It was eating him alive. That was the thing about people like Mark. They only know how to manipulate, not how to prepare. We'd spent years building the case. He'd spent minutes trying to bury it. Guess who ran out of time? It started with a calendar block. No subject, no organizer, just a hold from compliance internal. Then came the emails. Not questions, requests. Please provide time cards from Q2 through Q4. Submit team meeting logs, project assignments, and visa documentation references. List all employees working past standard business hours between April and October. The audit had arrived. No warnings, no PR rollout, just cold clinical data pulls. And you could feel the temperature drop across the company. People stopped talking in the break room. Slack channels went quiet. Mark didn't show up on Monday. Kevin messaged me. "They're in HR, pulled 2 laptops, might be imaging them." I replied, "Let them. Paper trails don't lie." Then IT made its move. They flagged log entries for Mark's account. 3 unauthorized deletions after the company's retention memo went out. That's felony territory. Once an investigation starts, records are legally protected. You touch them, you're toast. But Mark? He'd panicked. Sloppy people make easy targets. HR released a new memo. Tone, robotic. "We are cooperating fully with an internal and external compliance review. Employees are reminded not to discuss pending reviews publicly." Translation, "Shut up. Lawyer up." Meanwhile, Adrienne asked me for 2 things. 1, a copy of every calendar invite with mentorship, culture, or visa in the title from the past 18 months. 2, a short statement about how visa sponsorship had been used in performance conversations. I gave her 3 bullet points. Then I attached 37 meeting invites. No commentary, just facts. She didn't respond. She didn't have to. The external auditors arrived next. Private firm, quiet suits, no name badges. They weren't here to talk feelings. They wanted records, and records we had. Sana submitted a comparison. Logged hours versus paid hours. She'd built the spreadsheet over months. 1 column in red, time worked. 1 column in black, time compensated. Over 200 hours missing. All optional meetings. Rahul submitted his copy of the intern training materials. The gratitude slide, the mentoring dinner emails. One message from Mark that read, "I expect visible effort from our international team." He never defined visible. He didn't have to. We all knew what it meant. The first leak came from finance. A mid-tier client sent an email to their account rep. Your Q3 delivery was 2 weeks late. QA failed twice. Your project lead mentioned resourcing issues. Can you clarify? Translation: We noticed. Then a second email. This one worse. We've heard concerns about your internal practices. Are junior staff expected to work off clock? Are visas being used as leverage? If so, we'll need to reevaluate. They CC'd a board member. That did it. The company had tolerated ethics issues, but revenue? Revenue got their attention. By Friday, Mark was suspended pending review. Not fired. Not yet. But the glass around him had shattered. No more appearances. No more speeches. Just an empty desk and a generic out-of-office reply. Someone removed his photo from the org chart, and that was before the hotline opened. The board installed a confidential reporting line, third party, anonymized. The message went out. If you've been pressured regarding visa status, unpaid labor, or inappropriate managerial conduct, please speak up. No retaliation. Total confidentiality. At first, I thought no one would use it. Then Sana messaged me. I submitted. Then Rahul. Then 3 others I barely knew. Then someone I didn't know at all. I said everything. I named names. I gave dates. I gave screenshots. They'd been waiting. We all had. Someone just needed to push first. Now the flood was coming. That weekend, I opened the shared Google sheet Kevin had created. Anonymous contributors only. The title bar, What He Took. Row after row. My first year of marriage. Sleep. A shot at a green card. My confidence. My time. One row read, I told my mom I was fine. I wasn't. I just didn't want her to worry. I stared at that one the longest. Because it wasn't dramatic. It was familiar. The board called a special session for the following week. 10 days earlier, Mark was invincible. Now he was a liability, and no one protects those for long. When predators lose control, they get loud. But we didn't. We watched. Mark was officially suspended pending review, but the damage was done. His absence became a vacuum, one no one rushed to fill. His allies stopped defending him. Some even deleted old posts, rewrote team bios, sanitized their footprints like exposure was contagious. HR's face changed overnight. Suddenly we weren't confused. We were valuable employees with perspectives. Suddenly, miscommunications became areas under investigation. I didn't smile, because I wasn't done. The confidential hotline overflowed. Whispers turned into testimony. Anonymous reports turned into timelines. The external firm coordinating the audit had to request an extension. There was too much to verify. The numbers were staggering. 37 complaints across 4 departments. 23 mentioned visa threats. 17 included screenshots. 9 referenced dinners. And 5 described physical encounters they'd never dared report. One read, He said I should be grateful, that others would have killed for this opportunity. I believed him. Another, He kept saying I owed him, for the letter, for the support. I just wanted to go home, but I thought he'd pull my visa if I didn't smile. I read every word. I didn't cry. I just wrote a new label for my binder, collateral. Because his power wasn't just a weapon, it had been policy. Reporters started circling. First it was tech blogs. Then a bigger outlet ran a quiet probe piece, just vague enough to protect the company, but direct enough to rattle the boardroom. They called it Mentorship or Leverage, Visas, and the Power Gap in Tech. No names, not yet. But everyone who mattered knew who it was about. My phone rang 4 times that day. I didn't answer. I wasn't ready for headlines. I wanted permanence, not noise. Kevin met me at the parking garage. "They're squirming," he said. "You can feel it." I nodded. "Let them. No more oxygen." "What's next?" I paused. "Let the process finish," I said. "I don't want loud." He waited. I looked him in the eye. "I want final." Adrian sent an internal memo to the board. Patterns indicate long-term systemic breakdown. Recommending full removal, policy overhaul, external oversight. She didn't CC Mark. That said enough, but just in case, someone leaked it to legal. By the next morning, Mark had hired his own lawyer. Not a company one. His own. That's when I knew we'd won. When they start defending themselves separately, the solidarity is dead. All that's left is survival instinct. Sana stopped me at the elevator. "They asked me to sign something," she said. "What kind of something?" "An NDA. I raised an eyebrow. They said it was routine, that they wanted to protect the integrity of the process. I laughed. Loudly. "Routine," I repeated. She didn't sign. Neither did I. If they wanted silence, they should have protected us first, not the man who spent years orchestrating fear and calling it mentorship. Then came the vote. 7 members on the board. 3 abstained. 4 voted to remove Mark from all operational roles, with cause. He lost his bonus. His stock options were frozen pending review. He was prohibited from managing visa-dependent staff at any regulated tech firm for the duration of the oversight period. A monitor would be installed. 1 year minimum. Independent, reportable, auditable, and public, if triggered. The final board memo was clinical. As part of our commitment to safe, fair, and lawful working conditions, we are implementing the following corrective actions. They listed them like bullet points, but I saw them for what they were: burial rights. For him, and for the version of the company that enabled him. The day it was announced, I walked to my desk and found it empty, cleaned, untouched. No retaliation, no cold shoulder, just room, space. Even the air felt different. Kevin dropped by with 2 coffees. "This the part where you drop the bomb in the press?" he asked. I shook my head. "No," I said. "That's what he would have done." He looked confused. I added, "He used fear. I used facts. That's the difference." He didn't argue, because there was nothing left to say. Rahul pinged me later that evening. "You heard?" I replied, "Yeah." Then, "Feels like we won." "No," I wrote, "we survived." Then added, "Now we build something that makes sure no one else has to." Revenge stories love the climax, the takedown, the roar of a crowd, the villain walking out in handcuffs. But real revenge? It lives in paperwork. The final bill didn't come in fire. It came in emails, memos, fines, and signatures, and every single one had Mark's shadow behind it. The company settled quietly. No lawsuits, no courtroom theatrics. But the money moved. $1.2 million in back pay, misreported overtime, and non-compliant retention practices across 3 fiscal years. They framed it as a correction, not an admission. We knew better. A second announcement followed. Effective immediately, all work exceeding 45 hours per week must be tracked, approved, and compensated. Mandatory cultural events outside business hours are prohibited. They even added a new button to our time cards, flag as optional event. It was small, but it meant they knew what they'd done, and they knew we knew it too. Mark didn't come back. The review board barred him from managerial positions that involved visa oversight for good. Not just here, anywhere the firm had influence. His LinkedIn still listed him as on sabbatical. But word had spread. People in our industry talk fast, and they talk quiet. A recruiter friend told me he'd applied to 2 other firms. Both passed. One cited pending regulatory issues. The other, cultural mismatch. I couldn't help it. I smiled. They offered me a promotion. Director of International Policy. It was a shiny title, a safe play. Put the survivor in charge of preventing the next disaster. A face-saving gesture disguised as reform. I didn't say yes. Not at first. I'd seen what reform looked like under Mark. He'd once used that same word to justify forcing interns into weekend team syncs with no pay. So I waited. Asked questions. What authority would I have? Could I veto hires? Would I be in the room when sponsorships were reviewed? Would they listen? To their credit, they said yes. To all of it. So I accepted. Not for prestige, for prevention. The first thing I did was audit the sponsorship list. There were names there I didn't recognize. People scattered in satellite teams, all tied to expiring visas, under managers who never once completed a training on international compliance. Some of those managers were still scheduling culture sessions. Not anymore. I rewrote the handbook. One section, bolded, visas are contracts, not collars. Another, no one is required to perform gratitude. Work is enough. People noticed. They asked if it was personal. It was. And I made no apology. Dr. Elise Lane from the lab reached out again. Her voice was warm. "Heard you've been busy," she said. Quietly, I replied. "Need a break?" I laughed. Then I told her I was staying. At least a while. The lab had saved me. But here, I could save others. One woman had emailed me from another department. "I thought I was crazy. Your story. Thank you." Another, newer hire said, "He cornered me once. I didn't know how to say no. Now I don't have to." That's what mattered. Not Mark. The ones who came after. The ones who'd never know what it meant to fake a smile at 11:30 p.m. because your visa renewal was pending and the man across the table held your future in his palm like a toy. We didn't throw a party, but we met up, Kevin, Sana, Rahul, and me, at a quiet bar, back corner, no nameplates, no fanfare, just old co-workers who knew too much. We toasted with water. None of us said Mark's name. Not because he didn't matter, because he didn't anymore. A week later, I got a letter from the legal team, not addressed to me personally, just a final notice. Pursuant to the findings, the following individual has been permanently restricted from management authority over any employees on work visas within the jurisdiction of Redacted and its affiliates. Mark's name was on it. It was stamped, signed, filed, final. I printed it. Not for revenge. Not even for closure. I just wanted to hold it. To feel the weight of finished. It wasn't revenge that filled the room. It was relief. No corner glances, no forced laughter, no lipstick checked in bathroom mirrors because a director might show up by surprise. Just women. Strong, tired, brilliant immigrant women. No hierarchy, no corporate theater. Just dinner. For once. On our terms. I hosted it in a local tech space we'd rented. Folding chairs, catering from a nearby Sri Lankan spot, string lights and secondhand mugs. No name tags, no pitches. Just an open mic and a single rule. Speak if you want, stay silent if you need, and no one here reports to anyone else. The room held 28. They brought samosas, chana masala, jollof rice, a tray of spring rolls, and more stories than we could hold in one night. Sana stood up first. She didn't give details, just said, "I worked for 3 years afraid of being sent home if I made a mistake. I thought that was normal. It wasn't." People nodded. No applause, just recognition. A woman from QA whispered to me during dessert, "I once skipped my sister's wedding because I was told missing the Friday deliverable would set back my green card clock." I believed them. For years. I didn't tell her how common that lie was. I just listened. That was the point. For once, we weren't competing for safety. We were sharing it. I stood up last, not to perform, just to close. I held up a piece of paper, not for drama, for finality. This, I said, is a legal enforcement order. It guarantees that one man, who once said I owed him dinner for my visa, can never again manage international staff in this country's regulated tech sector. I folded it. Didn't pass it around. Didn't read his name. Because he didn't belong here. This wasn't about him anymore. It was about what he couldn't touch. Us. I ended the night with one line. Fear is a tool, but documentation is a weapon, and silence only protects the wrong people. Some women cried, from grief, from validation, from release. Some didn't cry at all, just smiled for the first time in what looked like months. One woman whispered, "Thank you." I didn't say, "You're welcome." I said, "You're next." Not for pain, for power. On Monday, I walked into my new office, not Mark's. A different floor, different air, different tone. My desk was clean. My inbox was full of questions, invitations, policy drafts. I answered them one by one. No drama, no noise. Just slow, intentional construction. A new system, a real one, where visas were protected, not leveraged, where meetings ended on time, where cultural fit wasn't code for compliance, where no one had to earn humanity with unpaid overtime. HR sent me a form that afternoon, a routine update for the compliance division. One field, signature of officer responsible for international protections. I paused, then signed my name. One line, no hesitation. That was the moment it really ended. Not when Mark was suspended, not when the audit closed, not even at the dinner, but here, with ink. Because now I didn't just survive. I wrote the policy. I built the wall. And he was outside of it. Forever. I left work early that day, stepped into the crisp air, no phone in hand, no Slack messages in my ear, just sunlight and the sound of a world still spinning, finally not pressing down. My visa wasn't a leash anymore. It was just paperwork, and I held the pen.